Hi, Leslie.
Hi, Patricia.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
Very good. What's the weather like in Jersey?
It is cold, and we have a little snow on the ground. Not snowing now, but a little snow on the ground.
But usually you have like sunshine, huh?
Oh yeah, it's a sunny day. I'm actually looking up because there's a window behind my screen, and yeah, blue skies, sunny. What
That's
about
nice.
what about where you are?
Today is cold also, and today was sunny. So we have some blue sky. You know, sometimes Switzerland is a little gray, but this week it's not so bad. It's not so bad. You know, I used to live in Jersey,
You did. Where?
right across like lower Manhattan, like Jersey City.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. Are you far from there or are you close to
Nah, it's a bit north of me, but I'm like in the center of the state.
center? Okay.
So
Yeah. I only know a little bit of Jersey, not that much. So anyway, I'm so happy to welcome you to the Born to Be Free Summit. And so today our guest is Dr. Leslie Becker-Phelps. She is a psychologist. She's an author. She has authored 2 books, Insecure in Love and Bouncing Back from Rejection. And she's also a teacher. But I think that's not all. You do so many other things. Would you like to tell the viewers what else you do, please?
absolutely, absolutely. First, I want to just thank you for including me on the summit. It's
Oh, you're
it's a
welcome.
great opportunity, and it's a wonderful chance to share what it is I do. So, primarily I think of myself just as a psychologist, as a therapist. So I treat individuals and couples,
Mhm.
and then in wanting to get the word out on how people can heal and just be emotionally healthier, I've expanded to the writing that you mentioned. I spent a lot of years writing for WebMD. I write for Psychology Today, a blog there. And then I also have a YouTube channel. So I do that. And then I speak. So I'll speak to both mental health professionals, teaching them about some of the things we're going to talk about today, as well as to just the public. So I keep busy doing different things. I find that more interesting
Yeah.
and energizing.
Energizing. And it's helpful, of course, very helpful. You teach also in a university?
No, I don't teach at a university. I've done a lot of teaching so far. The majority of what I've done in terms of teaching has been to mental health professionals, and I traveled domestically just around the country, and I would provide full-day seminars on attachment and relationships, and again, the kinds of things we're talking about, but it's to a professional audience so that they can then learn this information and take that and help their patients.
Okay, I see. So, but I'm curious, like, what got you into this field? Because I wouldn't think of just going into this mental health field to specialize in that. My specialty is different, where, my education, what I mean. But what got you into this field?
I think it just unfolded over time. I would say like my first exposure was probably high school. I had agreed when I was in high school, or signed up to be part of a hotline. And so I was trained to answer calls for people who were struggling. And that was my first experience.
Mm-hmm.
And, as I went through school, I realized that I like helping people. I like helping people, in like one-on-one and the kinds of things you imagine in doing therapy. And I don't know, just kind of developed from there. Took classes, thought the classes were interesting, did more, and
Wow.
here we are.
And you love it. You love doing it.
Absolutely. And I love the diversity in what I do. So for me, when I sit with individuals, it's very engaging in one way. And then when I sit with couples, it's like a very different experience. And then the writing, I've always liked writing. So then that was an opportunity. Like everything that I do provides a different type of experience. And that's part of what I love is that diversity, and all with the focus of trying to help people. So one of the things I think about is that a lot of times people say they don't know if they like their job, or they're pretty miserable. Not only do I love what I do, but even on a day where maybe I'm not up to the task, because we all have days like that, I always know that what I'm doing is important. I feel like, I'm there, I'm helping people. And really that personally for me is very fulfilling. I'm not making widgets. I'm doing something that feels meaningful.
Yeah, I think it's a calling, and that comes back to finding our purpose in life. But the reason why you and we are here today is because we want to help people to be free from emotional and psychological issues. So really welcome. And I trust that you'll be really blessed today by listening to Dr. Leslie Becker-Phelps. The title that you give this interview was Bouncing Back from Rejection, which was kind of like your book, huh? So yeah, I'm really interested in knowing rejection. Like rejection sensitive people tend to struggle with feeling unworthy, inadequate, flawed, or unlovable. So based on your experience from, helping people in this area, what could be the causes for that kind of feelings? And do they know it? I mean, the people that you're treating or helping, do they know that that's the problem? Or as you talk to them, then they find out with your help, but okay, I'm dealing with rejection here.
So just to give some context, nobody likes to be rejected, right? So for all of us, it doesn't feel good. So that's why I talk about rejection sensitivity. There's some people who are just more sensitive to it. So while it might not feel good to anyone, for some people it feels more devastating or bigger, or if there are more neutral kind of circumstances, they'll tend towards thinking they've been rejected than towards feeling okay. And it's really, a lot of it is based in how people feel about themselves, which you had mentioned, right? So there's something wrong with me. And that often goes back to early learning about who we are. So you're born into the world, and you're not born with a perception of yourself, right? We're not really thinking as infants. And you get feedback as you grow, as you mature through childhood. And the feedback you get, a lot of it from caregivers and family, and then, even as you get older, just your general environment, like school or friends. The feedback you get teaches you something about yourself. Who am I? Am I okay? And if you get feedback that's kind of attuned to who you are, so if you're happy, people are happy for you, or if you're struggling, having difficulty, you have a sense of feeling cared about, but the person kind of gets it and they're sensitive to you. Then you get a sense of like, oh, I have value, I have worth, I feel good about me. The more you feel that, then when bad things happen, or someone doesn't like you, or whatever difficulty you face, you don't take it in as, oh, there's something wrong with me. You feel like you feel good about yourself, but, oh, this is a painful circumstance. Or maybe you are rejected, really outright rejected, and it'll be like, ow, that hurts. But it's not like, oh, that's because I'm unworthy. So there's that. Also important is when you're getting feedback, let's say largely from your caregivers, right? So that would be your parents or grandparents or a nanny or whoever it is in your life. You're also learning when you're a child, how much can I rely on other people to be there for me? Are they going to be emotionally available to me? So then if you feel like they are emotionally available, then when you face a struggle, you can feel good in yourself, but then you can also reach out and expect support from the outside. So you're not doing this alone, right? And then that feels good. So for people who learn the opposite, that, oh, the significant others in my life, they're not going to care about me. They'll be harsh towards me. They'll be rejecting of me. Then they expect to see that out in the world. And that also adds later to rejection sensitivity, because not only do they feel badly inside themselves, but they expect rejection from outside. Expect that it gets to be like a template, right? It's your working model. And that's what you carry with you through life, which can change with experience, and this is the reason why I'm even talking about this, because in therapy, if I can't change it, then, why would I be working with somebody?
Mm-hmm.
Or as an individual, if you're trying to, help yourself, again, why would you try if it's not something you can change? It is something you can change. So you have a foundation and you would expect certain things. You have a certain working model, but once you start to see that model, then you can start to work with it and change it and learn to kind of nurture a more positive sense towards yourself, more positive relationships, and change kind of the trajectory of where you're going in life emotionally.
Mm-hmm. So something important that I gather from what you say, you can change. Okay, first there is an awareness of my thought pattern, and then the good news is I can change. The question I have though, is that something that develops mostly in childhood, in teens, or can be just, I'm fine until I'm an adult and then I have a traumatizing experience where I'm so rejected that I know I am like very sensitive to that rejection? Or does it mostly happen in childhood until like what age? Or is there some pattern?
Yeah, there's patterns to it, but there's nothing hard and fast. It's not like, oh, you're set by the age of 5 or 12 or something. And then, like we said, you're not set in rock, set in stone. It doesn't work that way. So there are some very formative experiences we have, younger ages, but we continue to grow and change. That's the beauty of this. So the answer to your question is, yeah, you could have a really traumatic experience in adulthood that could set you back in terms of how you feel about yourself or relationships. But you also have where you started. So there was actually an interesting study done that showed that people who were had caring relationships in childhood, when they're older, they tend to choose people who are caring in that way, right? Mm-hmm. So if they choose someone who's, they looked at people in, and I forget what age, the early 20s, and then they looked at them like 2 years later. Mm-hmm. If they chose a partner who was caring back, 2 years later, they had a caring relationship, a more secure attachment, a secure connection. Mm-hmm. You take the same people who had secure relationships in childhood, but if they choose a partner who is not as nurturing, right, is kind of negative towards them, 2 years later, they're less secure. That person who was originally secure is feeling less secure. So what does that tell us? It tells us our childhood experiences have an effect, but our current experiences do too. So if we flip that around, if you were not fortunate enough to grow up and have positive relationships early on, so your foundation is a little bit shakier, you don't feel good about yourself, you can make changes later. Mm-hmm. This study looked at who you choose. So you could choose people who are more positive, and then over time, they will help you feel more secure in yourself, less sensitive to rejection, less sensitive to negativity toward yourself. The study didn't address this, but other research does show that you can work towards changing what's going on inside of you and help yourself become more secure. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a combination of what you were asking about.
I'm curious. Now you talked about relationships, and so you counsel or you have clients who are couples and who have this kind of issue like rejection. Are there any stats on like do the people who feel very sensitive about rejection, do they attract the same type of people or the opposite, or it doesn't? No, there's no trend or stats on that. What's the observation?
Well, one interesting statistic is most people do have some level of security, secure attachment. This is tricky because people tend to think like, you're not securely attached. You're insecure, right? Or you're not, or you're secure. But it doesn't work that way. No. People are different. They have different levels of security, right? So it's broader than just like yes, no. These aren't like on-off switches. So the majority of people fall within what we would call secure attachment, meaning they feel positively about themselves and they expect significant others to be available to them. 60%. And this is cross-culturally. 60%, that's pretty good. Of course, that means 40% are struggling with not being as secure. So I don't know the statistics on within secure attachment, how many people are choosing partners who are secure. But again, it's tricky because it's not just a yes or no. So you could have someone who's a little bit anxious. They're kind of towards the secure end, but they're just kind of a little bit anxious in their relationships. So, but when they're together with the secure partner, the anxious person may actually be more secure in that relationship because they're being, supported in the relationship. You understand what I'm saying? So
Well,
changes depending on the people that you pick or the environment. So you might be more secure in your personal relationships and find you're less secure at work, or you're more secure in certain relationships, but less secure in other ones. So even though there's a theme, it can vary in different environments and over the course of your life.
Okay, so you can be insecure in a relationship, but at work, you're very secure and doing fine.
Could be. Or you may be the person who goes to work, and as soon as your supervisor or your boss says, can you change this? Now you feel like, the world's been blown up, right?
I'm about to be fired.
I'm about to be fired, exactly. And I've, worked a lot with both, with people who are like, why am I okay at work? And then I go home and, if my partner looks at me sideways, or maybe, just they had a grumpy day, all of a sudden I feel like they're going to leave me. Like, what's going on? And that just has to do with how people have thought their experiences and how they've kind of digested their experiences over time.
Because I was going to ask you, if this person had very sensitive, rejection sensitive people, does that thing show in every area of their lives? But I guess the answer is could be different. In a relationship, it's different. At work, it's different. In another setting, it's different. So it's not the same behavior everywhere. Yeah.
Not necessarily. I mean, for some people, they struggle across all the domains. And for other people, it just seems to come up more in one area than another.
But I guess that for me, the positive thing is the more secure partner you have, the better for you.
The better for you.
Absolutely.
I had read some time ago, there was a study, and what they were looking at, they termed it the Michelangelo effect. And I love that term. So the idea is that Michelangelo, if he was carving in stone, he would look at the stone, he would kind of see within the grain of the stone, or however the stone is formed, he would see the image. And what he saw himself doing is cutting away the unnecessary part of the stone till the sculpture came out. But he didn't see it so much as him creating just the sculpture from his head. He saw it in the stone and cut away. So they said, when you have a partner who sees you the way you would ideally like to see yourself, they see you, your strengths, they think you're wonderful, they see all that wonderfulness in you. It's the Michelangelo effect. You start becoming more of who you want to be because they see you that way. It helps you become more of that.
Yeah, totally agree. And there is a well-known leader who says that all the time. If you treat people, when you meet someone, put on their front here, a 10 out of 10. So expect that from them, and they start behaving that way. Like the child, when the teacher or the parent says all the time, you're dumb, you're stupid, and then they start becoming that way, and they start believing that way. So it's important.
That's important. But one thing I would add is you want to see, in this study, part of what was important is the partner saw what the person felt was most important to them, how they wanted to be. So it's not so much just seeing the person positively, but it's what they value. So with a child, you can say positive things, but if it's what's meaningful to you, but not the child, it's a problem. So they feel like they have to live your expectation. Oh, you're so beautiful. oh, when you do this or that, you're so wonderful. Now the child learns that they have to be that thing or embody that trait in order to make you happy, as opposed to maybe the child is just very interested. I'm going to pick like a basic kind of like, they're really interested in stamp collecting. Like, oh, wow, that's so wonderful that you have this interest. Show me more about what's interesting to you. Wow, this is so great that you have such a passion for this, and you're supporting them for what's important to them.
Okay. Yeah. So.
Mm-hmm.
No, sorry. Yeah. So it's not what I want. It's meeting the need of the other person, basically, valuing the person, edifying them, and It's but sometimes the parents project on their kids. It's like, oh, when I was young and a teen, I wanted to be a doctor. I never became a doctor. And I wanted to play piano. I never learned. So now I'm pushing my son to play piano because I like when he plays, like maybe I'm imagining myself like, oh, I would have loved to play like that. So we're pushing him. And I wanted him to play tennis because I never did. And then we signed him up for tennis classes. And after a few years, like, I don't want to do it anymore. And I'm like, okay. So it's like sometimes we project on our kids the things we couldn't do. And that's not right. That's
a great point. That's a great point. So with this example you're giving, there is a term, it's a technical kind of term, it's called mentalizing. When you mentalize someone, you understand what's going on for them here and also in here. So you're not projecting your stuff, you're actually seeing that, oh gosh, I see that my child really, let's say, likes tennis. I think tennis is a boring sport, but my child really likes tennis. And I can see that they have dreams of being a tennis pro and they want to pursue this. And when I can see that, now I understand why my child acts as he does, and he keeps bugging me for a tennis racket or, whatever it is. And then once you can understand that, now you can approach your child understanding where they're coming from. Or you can see like, oh, as much as I want them to play the piano, if I really pay attention, they're not pulled to the piano. They're not really caring about the piano. They're just trying to make me happy, because you're understanding what's going on here and also here in them. And that's important, because when you do that for your child, when you can mentalize your child, you're there for them in a way that they're needing. All of us were children at one point. And if your parents did not mentalize you in a way that you felt like understood and cared about for who you were, not for what they wanted, then you likely grew up with a sense of you're not okay, because who you were wasn't, even if your parents loved you, and we're not, this isn't about blaming parents. It's not like your parents didn't love you. We're all human. So they saw you, they saw you, they did the best they could. But if what you took in was feeling like you weren't really seen or cared about for you, or some version of that, you may be hesitant in relationships going forward to show you. You may feel like, oh, if I show me, they're not going to like me. Now we're with somebody who's feeling sensitive to rejection or fearing rejection.
Yeah, I get the point. Just like my son, when I asked him, so what do you want to do when you grow up? He's like, what do I know? I'm only 11. I want to be a YouTuber. I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. Let's see, we have time to think about it.
It's really hard. It's really hard to not roll your eyes at that, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, but that's the influence of the culture right now. So yeah, I guess as parents, we try to do the best for our kids, but maybe we don't do so well, or we try at least. And yeah, so let's see what happens to that later. You also say that nurturing compassionate self-awareness can help people heal from rejection sensitivity. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think compassionate self-awareness is so important. So let's start with the idea of self-awareness, to be self-aware. We were talking earlier, you may be playing out patterns that you've learned from childhood or just through experience going on in life, that there's something wrong with you in some way, or people aren't going to be there for you. You've learned that. if you're not aware of it, you're just going to keep playing out these patterns and have these expectations. And it just is. It's like, fish in water. You're just not going to see it.
Mm-hmm.
You begin by understanding you, becoming more self-aware. And so then you can start to see the patterns. And when you can see it, when you can really see what's going on, then you can, and let me back up, when you can see it both here, but also here from your heart, you can kind of get what's in your heart. Then you can start to have empathy. If you just see from here, sometimes people try to understand themselves, but they pick themselves apart. Oh, I do this okay, but I'm not okay here. What am I doing wrong here? And they keep being self-critical. That's self-aware, but it's not fully self-aware because you're only looking at the negative. There's your bias, but you're also not approaching yourself from your heart. Like, oh, let me understand in a caring way, like how you might approach a child, right? Let me understand what's going on. So the more self-aware you are, then the more you can, meaning the more you mentalize, right? We talked about what mentalizing is, really get where someone's coming from. When you mentalize yourself, you understand yourself, you can empathize with yourself. And when you have empathy, you can be like, oh my gosh, of course I'm afraid of being rejected when my parents were always so harsh with me, or my previous 2 boyfriends, were so harsh. Of course I'm afraid of being rejected. I can understand that. I can mentalize that. And you do that, and then you do it with a sense of caring. That's the compassion, the sense of caring towards yourself. Now, it doesn't immediately change that you're not afraid of rejection, but you can see, you can be like, oh, well, of course I'm afraid of being rejected because I have this history. As you do that, you're being caring towards yourself, and you're making your fears, your expectations less real. Because then you can say like, oh yes, this feels true that they're going to reject me any minute. But when I step back, I can see that it's not necessarily true. Just because it feels true doesn't mean it is true. This is the beginnings. This is the beginnings of healing, because you can see it, you can hold it. And the more you can hold it and be like, oh my gosh, how horrible it is that I've had those experiences that have left me feeling this way. Now you're feeling caring towards yourself rather than beating yourself up for what's wrong with you. And this is how the healing begins and then proceeds.
Okay, so awareness, self-awareness gives me compassion for myself. So I don't dismiss my emotions and my feelings. I acknowledge them. Did I understand?
Absolutely. You acknowledge them. We're not just trying to get rid of them, because if you just say, well, that's dumb. Why do I feel that way? Why am I so sensitive? What's my problem? You're just reinforcing the rejection. That's really not.
You reinforce the rejection if you do that.
Exactly.
Because I think many of us do that. Just, oh, I'm tough. I don't care about that. I don't feel that way. I don't, but that's not the good way to react then.
Well, what it does is it just makes you feel worse. An example, a way of thinking about this that might be helpful, because it's sometimes hard for us to get our heads around, like we naturally have a sense of being harsh towards ourselves, just wanting to be different. Like, what's my problem? But if you think about, if you were to see, say a child struggling, maybe your child struggling, let's say they're trying hard to take for a math test and they're not doing well. You could go over to them and you could say, what the heck's your problem? Why are you so dumb that you can't even figure this out? Chances are most of us are not going to approach our child like that. What we're going to do is, hope not, right? Our better selves would say, you'd sit down with your child and say, this is really hard. I can see how this is hard. And I'm so sorry. It's painful for you. What can we do to help you do better? Because you have it in you. You do well in so many areas. We all have our weaknesses. What do we need to do? Do you need help from your teachers or something I can do? And when you approach your child that way, I'm going to guess you would imagine your child responding positively, right? They're going to be like, oh yeah, I do that well. Well, I guess, can you show me this or that? It pulls for a positive response for them. Whereas if you do the first way, like, what's your problem? Why can't you do this? Chances are they're going to shut down. And here's an interesting thing. Very often children will shut down, will feel negatively about themselves, which is not good. Sometimes we think it works because we see the child double down and they try harder and they do better, which is great because they don't want mommy or daddy to be upset with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even as they do better, they still feel negatively towards themselves underneath because what they've been taught is they're not okay. So success is never good enough. And I'm sure some people watching this will know that feeling of, gosh, you know, I work really hard, but no matter how much I succeed, no matter what my next success is, I never feel okay. I keep expecting that people are going to see that I'm a fake or they're going to reject me the next time. Because what you've learned is who I am now is not okay. I've got to work harder and overcome my flaws. That's a problem. So you could be a very, from the outside, successful person,
Mm-hmm.
but on the inside, you never feel it. And that's problematic.
Is that where we get the imposter syndrome? Or that's different?
I think that can be part of the imposter syndrome. That's there's something wrong with me. I have to earn for other people to think I'm okay. So I'm working really hard. See, look, I worked really hard. So I earned it. See, I tricked them. I tricked them into thinking I'm capable. I'm not really capable. It's just that I work so hard. Not realizing that you're working hard actually helped you become more capable. It just doesn't feel right because you're holding on to that negative sense of yourself.
And that's what we want to get rid of.
That's what we want to get rid of. And that's the part that requires the caring, the compassion. Like if your child is struggling, you sidle up next to them, you put your arm around them, you hold them while they cry. That's all compassion. That's the stuff you want to try and learn to do for yourself.
So compassion for myself and then for others.
And for others, absolutely. And in order to have true compassion for someone who's struggling, you need to understand their struggle. To have like a deep compassion. I mean, you can have just compassion. You see someone's in pain and you have, like you feel for them. That's a level of compassion. But to really deeply get it, you need to understand them, which brings us back to the self-awareness. So one thing I encourage people to do is to develop awareness in 5 domains. And I use the acronym STEAM to help people with this. S is for sensations. What do you sense in your body? Very often we are dissociated from our bodies. We don't even know what our bodies are sensing. So do you have a tightness in your chest, a churning in your stomach? No, what am I sensing in my body? T is for thoughts. What am I thinking? What kinds of thoughts am I thinking? Reflect on your thinking, right? So now I know what I'm sensing in my body. I know what my thoughts are. STE is for emotions.
Emotions.
Right. What am I feeling? What are my emotions? We don't just have one emotion at a time. We have many emotions and sometimes they conflict. And it can be hard to know them. So I have an emotions list actually in my books as well as on my website. You can just get it for free from there. It's under the Bouncing Back from Rejection book, the resources. You can just print out the list of emotions. You'd be like, oh yeah, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling this. STEA is for actions. What are the actions I'm taking? So you can see, what am I doing? And when you really watch your actions, you can maybe understand how you might be reinforcing some negative feelings in yourself or pulling for negativity from others. What are my actions? The M in STEAM is the mentalizing, which I explained, which is to understand yourself or someone else, what's going on here, as well as what's going on here. When you have that STEAM, a full understanding of yourself, you will naturally feel more compassion, more empathy and compassion, because you're connecting from the heart as well as from the mind. It's interesting because often what we find, what you'll find if you try using STEAM, going through it, you may realize that, oh my gosh, I don't even know what, I keep saying what my feelings are, but really I'm talking about my thoughts. Oh, I'm feeling like I'm such an idiot. No, that's a thought. Right? This is why we have a list of emotions. Also, just as a good tip for people, if you have trouble kind of knowing what's going on inside, a great place to start is with the sensations. It's very concrete. You focus on your body. And then when you realize, let's say, oh, my chest is tight, just pay attention to your chest being tight and see if you notice that there are particular emotions that go with that, or maybe particular thoughts that tend to go with that. So you can start with one of the domains of awareness and then you kind of add to it. It helps you, it's like a portal into the other domains. And the more you build that, the richer an understanding you have of yourself from a caring perspective. Now you have compassion for yourself and you can begin to make changes. You begin to feel more positively, more caring towards yourself and then in your relationships. And certainly you can then work on mentalizing others and having compassion for others too.
Oh, that's actually sounds not so complicated. And I think everyone can do that. Just to start, STEAM. I'm going to try to remember that when I feel something, when I feel rejection, STEAM. That's not, yeah, it's a nice acronym that's easy to remember. So when STEAM starts coming out of my ears and, you know, I'm going to start thinking about that STEAM. But that's very helpful. Thank you so much. So my question, maybe my last question is like, can people who are very overly rejection sensitive, can they heal, or can they be like okay, can they feel okay in their skin, or can they overcome that oversensitive rejection?
Absolutely. People.
And how long does it take?
I'm sorry?
How long does it take?
Oh, I can't answer that question. It's going to be different for everyone. But I can tell you the tools you need in order to make it happen, which we just talked about. If you can develop STEAM, if you can build STEAM in your life, you know, you build that self-awareness, that self-compassion, you will find that your rejection sensitivity lessens. You're more okay with yourself. If you're very sensitive to rejection, a great place to start is with self-affirmations, which people often misunderstand. You think like, oh, I have to find something that I can like be good at. But a self-affirmation is looking at yourself and saying, what is it that I recognize in myself that I feel positively about?
Mm-hmm.
For instance, I think I'm a good friend. You don't have to talk yourself into it. You just know in your heart you're a good friend and you're caring towards others. Self-affirmation is just looking at the things that you already know to be true in yourself,
Okay,
that feel good, and give that some attention. That helps build some resilience in you, some positivity in you so that you could be resilient. So that's just an example of one thing you can do if you're just feeling really in such a bad place. It's hard to imagine feeling more positively. You start with what you have.
start with what we have. I like that. I like the affirmation you said. It's not, you know, some positive affirmation is just kind of like creating something I don't have, and I say it a lot of times, so it becomes reality. But yeah, I more like tend to agree with you on like I validate myself. We must all have something we are good at. Like I'm a good friend, you know. For example, I follow up on my I meet deadlines at least, you know, that's something good. I keep my words, things like that. And then I validate myself. And I mean, if you don't validate yourself, who's going to do it for you?
Exactly.
You have to start with yourself. I mean, you're watching us. You just make a list of the things you're good at and say it every day. Say it every day.
Can I give
10 times a day?
Yeah, absolutely. Can I give one more tip?
Sure.
If there's even a single person who you know is a good friend or is caring towards you, is positive, get a picture of the person. You know, snap a picture on your phone. We'll have a picture, preferably one where the two of you are together, but it could just be one of them.
Just go on Facebook.
Huh?
Go on their Facebook.
Go on their Facebook. Put it either on your home screen or someplace where you can get to it quickly and look at it. And when you look at it, allow yourself to really take in, this person cares about me. This person is there for me. This person sees something positive in me. And you practice that each day. You just go and you look. So you're taking in that sense of feeling valued and loved and cared about. And then you can kind of build that within yourself.
Wow, awesome. Really, really precious tips, Leslie. And I think you have a gift for our viewers. Would you like to tell them?
Absolutely. So I put together a gift specifically for the summit. It's a toolkit. You're welcome. Yeah, I really do like helping people to become healthier. So it's a toolkit of the basics in developing compassionate self-awareness. So you'll get an explanation of compassionate self-awareness, how to build it. It'll include articles. It will include videos. You'll have access to all of that. Plus a free PDF of the first chapter of my book, Bouncing Back from Rejection, plus a subscription to my newsletter so you can see my newest, articles and videos to help you develop this compassionate self-awareness to overcome rejection sensitivity or just the negativity you might feel in yourself and your relationships.
Wow, that's great. Well, I trust that you will take advantage of that free offer. And would like to thank you so much, Dr. Leslie Becker-Phelps, for spending time with us today. And they will get the link to your website so they can receive the gift. Anything else before we say goodbye?
No, thank you for the opportunity to talk with you and hopefully help those of you watching this.
Yeah, thank you so much. I trust you. You've been very helpful for the viewers, and I guess we will, be in touch.
That sounds great.
Thank you so much.
Okay, take care.